Yes, people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all South India student. How are you? Hope so you are well. I am also good. So today we are going to start with the one very interesting or very small topic revision, that is the income from house property. Now this house property topic is applicable for CA intermediate as well as the CA final student. First section of this particular topic is a charging section. That charging section is section 22. Now section 22 says that rental income or annual value, I can say that will be taxable under that house property. Two conditions are satisfied. First condition, there should be a house property. Now question is that what is the meaning of house property? So house property means any building or land appertaining to that building. Now land appertaining to that building means any land attached to that particular building is called house property. Now guys, always remember that property, that building is a commercial building or residential building. In both the cases, income will be taxable under that house property only. So even if you receive the rent of the commercial property, then also it will be taxable under that house property. Now second condition is that assessee should be owner of that house property. Now owner means, sir, beneficial owner or registered owner? Right answer is beneficial owner. So if you are a beneficial owner of any house property, then income will be taxable under that house property only. Now guys, just pay attention. There are two type of the house property. One is the LOP. LOP means let out property. Let out property means any property given on the rent. So you are getting the rental income, that is called LOP. So LOP is obviously always taxable because you are going to get the rent. So rental income is taxable. So LOP is always taxable. Now second is a SOP. SOP means self-occupied property. If any property is used by owner for the self-occupation purpose, that is called your SOP. Now SOP may be of the two type. One is the SOP used for your business and profession purpose, and one is the SOP used for your residence purpose. Now if any SOP is used for your business and profession purpose, then you have to ignore that. You have to ignore that because ultimately, indirectly, that property is earning income under the head PGBP. I can take one example. This studio is owned by the BB sir, and BB sir is using that studio for the business and profession purpose. So in simple word, can I say that this studio is already earning income under the head PGBP? So that I have to ignore that, because that is already earning income under the head PGBP. So for the purpose of house property, I have to ignore any SOP used for your business or profession purpose. Now second, if any SOP used for your residence purpose, in that case, suppose if you are having only two SOP, means you are having two self-occupied property, then that is exempt, nothing is taxable. But suppose if any person is having more than two SOP, means suppose I am having the three house property and all three house property are self-occupied, in that case, two house property is exempt, means two house property is exempt, and one house property means remaining house property will be treated as the deemed to be let out property, and it will be taxable. Now there may be a question that, sir, how it will be taxable? Normally DLOP is a SOP only, because more than two house property, more than two SOP, then remaining SOP will be treated as DLOP. So in case of DLOP, sir, we are not getting any rent, then also it will be taxable. Answer is yes. Now how it will be taxable? Annual value will be taxable. How to calculate annual value, we will discuss later, don't worry about that. So all people, just pay attention. Types of house property. So there are two type of house property. One is the LOP. LOP means let out property, always taxable. SOP used for business and profession purpose, you have to ignore that. SOP residence purpose, suppose you are having the two SOP for the residence purpose, then both are exempt. Suppose you are having more than two, in that case two are exempt, and in excess of two will be treated as the DLOP, and it will be taxable. Now all people, just pay attention. There is a one amendment made by Finance Act 2019. Now what is the amendment? Suppose we can take one example. There is a builder, and builder, we can take one example. In Mumbai, there is a one builder, name is a Omkar Builder. Now what happened? Omkar Builder main business is to construct the flat and sell the flat. So if any income from selling of flat, then that income will be taxable under the head PGBP. That flats are stock in trade, and if he sell that stock, in that case that income will be taxable under the head PGBP. But suppose there were unsold stock and he just let out that flat. So is letting out is his business activity or not? Answer is no. So question is that, is whatever rental income for let out of unsold stock, that rental income will be taxable under the head business or house property? Right answer is house property. And there are various case laws. You know that there was one case law that was related to Delhi Hotel Limited and all. So we already discussed that case law in our regular batch as well as the fast track batch case law lecture. So rental income on unsold stock of a builder, that rental income will be taxable under that house property only. Now guys, suppose there is one builder, name is Omkar Builder. Omkar Builder is having 100 flats and all 100 flats are unsold and suppose not let out also, that is vacated, not let out also. So question is that Omkar Builder is having 100 flats and not sold, that is unsold stock, and not let out also. So question is that flats will be treated as DLOP and income will be taxable or not? So here lawmaker says that for the 2 years from the end of the financial year in which construction was completed, for 2 years from the end of the financial year in which construction was completed, annual value of that flat will be taken as nil. But guys, after 2 years, it will be treated as DLOP and income will be taxable under that house property. So what I'm saying that all people just pay attention. Any builder is having the unsold stock. Any builder is having the unsold stock. So that unsold stock for the 2 years from the end of the financial year in which construction was completed, for 2 year annual value will be nil, means nothing will be taxable. But after 2 years, if not let out, then also it will be treated as DLOP and it will be taxable under the head house property. You got my point or not? Yes. Now question is that, sir, how to calculate the income from house property? So for income from house property, in case of the SOP, means 2 SOP used for the residential purpose, there is no income that is exempt. So in case of SOP, always like all figure is dash 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 dash, only there is a one deduction, that is deduction under section 24. If there is a deduction under section 24, that is the interest deduction. So interest deduction you have to reduce. So in simple word, I can say that SOP income either will be nil or negative. If there is an interest, then SOP income will be negative. If there is no interest, in that case SOP income will be nil. But now question is that for LOP and DLOP, how to calculate the income from house property? So guys, for LOP and DLOP, first take the municipal value. Now question is that what is the meaning of the municipal value? Municipal value means value of property as per the municipality record. Means as per the municipality record, that property can earn what amount of rent in a year, that is called your rateable value, that is called your municipal value. Means as per the municipal record, that property can earn what amount of rent in a year, that is called your municipal value. So first take the municipal value. Second, take the fair rent. Now question is that what is the meaning of fair rent? So fair rent means rent of similar property in the same locality. So rent of similar property in the same area or same locality, that is called your fair rent. That fair rent is also known as the I can say that fair rent is also known as your reasonable letting value, or it is known as the reasonable rent also. So what I'm saying that all people just pay attention. First take the municipal value. And second is a fair rent. Take the whichever is higher. Municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher. Now whichever is higher, you have to compare this higher amount with your standard rent. Now question is that what is the meaning of standard rent? So standard rent means as per the Rent Control Act. There are various state government, and state government always wants to restrict some rent. So they decided some standard rent, means any person cannot collect the rent more than that limit. Legally, he cannot collect the rent more than that standard rent. That is called your standard rent. So just you have to take the whichever is higher and standard rent, whichever is lower, it is known as your expected rent, or I can say that the ER. So all people just pay attention. For SOP, obviously, there will be only interest deduction, other figure will be nil. Directly in case of SOP, you can start with the NAV only. That is net annual value. And from that annual value, just reduce the interest. So your income under SOP either will be nil or negative. Now guys, for LOP and DLOP. So for LOP and DLOP, first take the municipal value. Fair rent, whichever is higher. Now higher compare with the standard rent, whichever is lower, you will get your expected rent. Now expected rent, you have to compare with the actual rent. Now actual rent means rent received plus receivable minus unrealized rent. Now what is the meaning of unrealized rent? I will explain you, don't worry about that. So actual rent means rent received or receivable. Whatever outstanding rent, that also you have to consider. That is rent received plus rent receivable. That is called your actual rent. You have to take the whichever is higher amount. That is called your GAV, or I can say that the gross annual value. Now from gross annual value, you have to reduce the municipal tax paid. Whatever municipal taxes paid by the owner, that you have to reduce. You will get your NAV, that is net annual value. And from NAV, you have to reduce the two deduction. One is the deduction under section 24 clause A or clause A and clause B. Clause A deduction is a standard deduction 30% of the NAV. Whatever your NAV multiply by 30%, that is your standard deduction. And second is your interest on loan. You will get your income from house property. So all people just pay attention. Question is that how you will calculate the income under the head house property. First, take the municipal value. Municipal value means value of property as per the municipality record. That is called rateable value. Now, second is a fair rent. Fair rent means reasonable rent or reasonable letting value or rent of similar property in the same locality. That is called your fair rent. So, municipal value, fair rent, whichever is higher compared with the standard rent, whichever is lower. That is called your expected rent. Expected rent, actual rent, whichever is higher is called your GAV, gross annual value. From gross annual value, you have to reduce the municipal taxes paid by the owner. You will get your NAV. From NAV, 30% standard deduction of NAV and interest on loan. You will get your income from house property. Now, all people just pay attention. Question is that, sir, you are saying that municipal value you can reduce, but guys, municipal taxes can be reduced only if it is paid by the owner. If it is paid by tenant, then you cannot reduce. Means you can reduce the municipal taxes only if it is paid by the owner. Now, one more point, municipal taxes is allowed on the payment basis. Means if you paid the municipal taxes, then only it is allowed. Suppose if there is any outstanding municipal taxes, then it is not allowed. Means actually paid, then it is allowed. If it is not paid, outstanding, then it is not allowed as deduction. One more point, many times what happens, municipal taxes, they give you municipal taxes on percentage basis. Like municipal taxes is 10%, 15%, 20%. Then you have to calculate that percentage of municipal value. Means always calculate that percentage on municipal value. So suppose municipal taxes 10% is given, then 10% of the municipal value, 10% of the municipal value. Now, many times municipal taxes is also known by any other name also, like property tax, house tax, local tax also. That is called your municipal taxes also. And municipal taxes is the taxes which is recovered by municipality or local authority or cantonment board or gram panchayat and all. That is called your municipal taxes. Now, next part is related to interest on loan. What I'm saying that from NAV, you can get the two deduction. One is the standard deduction 30% of NAV. Second is the interest on loan. But guys, always remember that interest on loan is allowed only if loan was taken for the purpose of house property. Means either loan taken for the purchase or construction or repair or renovation of house property. So if loan was taken for the purpose of house property, means purchase, construction, repair or renovation of house property, in that case interest is allowed. Second point says that interest is allowed on the due basis. Interest is allowed on due basis means even if you have not paid the interest, then also it will be allowed as deduction, no problem at all. So interest is allowed on the due basis. Now, one more point, sir, loan should be taken from bank only. Is there is any condition? Answer is no. You can take the loan from bank, financial institution, your friends, your family, then also interest will be allowed. One more point, interest on interest, or I can say that penalty interest is not allowed as deduction. Penalty interest is not allowed as deduction. Only whatever your first time interest, that interest will be allowed as deduction. Now, all people just pay attention, sir, is there is any limit on interest? Answer is yes, there is limit. But guys, pay attention, on LOP and DLOP, there is no limit. For LOP, that is let out property, and DLOP, deemed to be let out property, no limit, means whatever total interest, that total interest is allowed as deduction. But guys, for SOP, up to 2 house you can claim as SOP. So for SOP, there is a limit. Now in SOP, there are two cases. One is the special case and one is the normal case. A special case says that 3 condition. First condition, if loan is taken on or after 1st April 1999. Second condition, loan is taken for purchase or construction of house property. And third condition says that if loan is taken for the purpose of construction of house property, then construction has to be completed within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which loan was taken. So if these 3 conditions are satisfied, first condition, loan taken on or after 1st April 1999, loan is taken either for purchase or construction of house property, and if loan is taken for construction, in that case construction has to be completed within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which loan was taken. In that case, maximum 2 lakh rupees interest is allowed as deduction. But suppose if your case is not fall in this particular case, in that case, normal case, maximum 30,000 interest is allowed as deduction. Now, when 30,000 deduction is allowed if loan was taken before 1st April 1999, or suppose if loan is taken on or after 1st April 1999, but loan was taken for the repair or renovation, then maximum 30,000 interest is allowed. Maximum 30,000 interest is allowed. So all people just pay attention. Just pay attention. What I'm saying that what is the limit in case of house property interest? So first is LOP and DLOP. So LOP, DLOP, no limit. Means whatever interest, that total interest is allowed under LOP and DLOP. But for SOP, there is a limit. In SOP, there are two parts. One is the special case, one is the normal case. In case of a special case, there are three conditions. First condition, loan is taken on or after 1st April 1999. Loan is taken for the purpose of purchase and construction of house property. And third, if loan is taken for the purpose of construction, then construction has to be completed within 5 years from the end of the financial year in which loan was taken. In that case, maximum 2 lakh rupees interest deduction is allowed. But in normal case, in other case, maximum 30,000 interest deduction is allowed. Now all people just pay attention. One more interesting part. Suppose any fresh loan is taken for the repayment of earlier loan, but earlier loan was taken for the purpose of house property. So question is that interest on fresh loan will also be allowed as deduction or not? Answer is yes, it is allowed as deduction. I can take one example. Earlier, suppose I have taken loan from the HDFC bank. That interest rate was suppose 7% for the purpose of house property. Now suppose Kotak Mahindra is offering the loan at 6% interest rate. So what happened? I just took the loan from Kotak Mahindra and repaid the earlier loan. So question is that whatever interest will be paid to the Kotak Mahindra, is that interest will also be allowed as deduction or not? Answer is yes, that will be allowed as deduction, no problem at all. Now all people just pay attention. One more very interesting part. If any interest is paid outside India, if any interest is paid outside India, then that interest will be allowed only if you have deducted the TDS and paid to the government. Suppose TDS was not deducted or TDS deducted but not paid to government, in that case that interest will not be allowed as deduction. Now there is a one very interesting part that is called pre-construction period interest. Now what is the meaning of pre-construction period interest? So all people just pay attention. Pre-construction period interest means interest before the year of construction. Interest before the year of construction means interest paid or outstanding before the year of construction. Year of construction means year in which construction was completed. So whatever interest before the year in which construction was completed, that interest is known as the pre-construction period interest. I can take one example. Suppose I have took one loan in 2018 for the purpose of house property. I was constructing one house property. Now what happens? Suppose construction was completed on 19 December 2020. So construction completed on 19 December 2020. So can I say that previous year 2021? Construction completed in previous year 2021. So whatever interest before previous year 2021, that interest will be treated as the pre-construction period interest. Or in simple word, I can say that whatever interest till 31st March 2020, whatever interest till 31st March 2020 or till previous year 1920, that interest is known as the pre-construction period interest. Now question is that, sir, pre-construction period interest is allowed as deduction or not? Answer is yes. Pre-construction period interest or pre-acquisition period interest. Now what is the meaning of pre-acquisition period interest? Suppose I can take one example. One assessee took one loan on 1st January 2020 and he purchased the house property on the 1st July 2020. So whatever interest till 31st March 2020, that is called your pre-acquisition period interest. So in simple word, I can say that whatever interest before the year, I'm not saying before the date, before the year in which construction was completed or house property was acquired, that interest is known as the pre-construction or pre-acquisition period interest. Now guys, this pre-construction or pre-acquisition period interest will be allowed as deduction in the 5 equal installment. This will be allowed as deduction in the 5 equal installment from the year in which construction was completed. So suppose construction completed in current year, so from current year, like within 5 equal installment, it will be allowed as deduction. You got my point or not? Yes. So all people just pay attention. Now next part is related to unrealized rent. So question is that, sir, what is the meaning of unrealized rent? Because while calculating the actual rent, always what is the meaning of actual rent? Actual rent means rent received plus rent receivable minus unrealized rent. Unrealized rent is like a bad debts of rent. So while calculating the actual rent, you can reduce the unrealized rent, that is called bad debts of rent. But unrealized rent you can reduce only if the 4 conditions of rule 4 are satisfied. If four conditions are satisfied, then only you can reduce the unrealized rent. Otherwise, unrealized rent you cannot reduce. Now, four condition. First condition is your tenancy should be bona fide tenancy. Bona fide tenancy means tenancy should be the genuine tenancy. That is the first condition. Second condition, that tenant should vacate the house property, because that person is not paying the rent and that person is occupied that house property. Obviously, that is not a right case. Now, that's why what I am saying, that that tenant should vacate that house property. Third condition says that that tenant should not occupy any other house property of the same assessee. That tenant should not occupy any other house property of same assessee, and reasonable steps should be taken by assessee for the recovery of unrealized rent. If all the four conditions are satisfied, then only unrealized rent you can reduce while calculating your actual rent. One more point, there is a one concept is called arrears of rent. Arrears of rent means any rent which was under dispute. Suppose there were any dispute, so any rent was under the dispute, that is called your arrears of rent. Now sir, suppose if unrealized rent or arrears of rent is recovered in subsequent year, what will be the tax treatment of that? So all people just pay attention. Arrears of rent or your unrealized rent recovered, in that case it will be taxable under the head house property only in the year of recovery. Means in the year of recovery, that will be taxable whether you are a owner or not of that particular house property. Suppose I can take an example. Suppose there was some unrealized rent related to one house property located at Mumbai, related to previous year 15-16. Now just I sold that house property in 2018. In 2020 I received the recovery of unrealized rent. So question is that even that will be taxable or not? Answer is yes, recovery of unrealized rent will be taxable, but guys, it will be taxable only 70%. Means 30% standard deduction is available. So whatever recovery amount minus 30% means 70% will be taxable. So what I am saying, that recovery of unrealized rent or arrears of rent will be taxable in the year of recovery, and 70% will be taxable. 30% standard deduction is allowed. Now all people just pay attention. There is very interesting part that is called concept of vacancy. Now what is the meaning of vacancy? Means your intention is to let out the property, but that property is vacated, means that property is vacant. That is called concept of vacancy. Means that property is not occupied by SSC as a SOP and all. No, means that property is totally vacant. That is called concept of vacancy. So normally what we do, you know that how we calculate the GAV, we take the municipal value fair rent whichever is higher and standard rent whichever is lower. That is called your expected rent. So normally we take the expected rent and actual rent whichever is higher as your GAV. Normally we take the expected rent or actual rent whichever is higher is your GAV. But guys, always remember, if there is a vacancy, then this higher concept is not applicable. If there is a vacancy, then this higher concept is not applicable. Means in case of the vacancy, you have to check that your actual rent and vacancy rent is more than equal to expected rent. In that case, your actual rent will be your GAV. What I'm saying that, okay, suppose if there is a vacancy, means house is vacated, there is a lock on the house. So I can say that, okay, suppose if there is a concept of vacancy, if that house is vacant, that is called vacancy. So in case of vacancy, your GAV will not be expected rent and actual rent whichever is higher. That you should not follow. Now you have to check that your actual rent plus vacancy rent is more than equal to expected rent. In that case, your actual rent is GAV. But suppose if your expected rent is more than actual rent plus vacancy rent, in that case your expected rent will be treated as your GAV. So all people just pay attention. Just you have to check that. First take the expected rent. After that, actual rent and vacancy rent. If actual rent and vacancy rent is more than equal to expected rent, in that case your actual rent will be treated as GAV. But suppose if expected rent is higher, in that case your expected rent will be treated as GAV. You got my point or not? Yes. Now next part is related to the concept of partly let out property. Partly let out property means, sometimes what happens, suppose if any house property, some area of house property is let out and some area is self occupied. I can take one example. I am having the 2 BHK property. So in 2 BHK property, suppose one room is let out to someone and remaining property is self occupied, means some area is let out and some area is self occupied. Then sir, how we will calculate the income from house property? So guys, in this particular case, you have to treat house property as a two house property. Means your let out area will be treated as LOP and your self occupied area will be treated as SOP. Means you have to prepare the two column. One is for SOP and one is for LOP. Guys, always your municipal value, fair rent, standard rent, municipal taxes, interest on loan, that has to be divided between your SOP and LOP on the area basis. But always remember, actual rent never be divided. Actual rent, you should not divide the actual rent, because actual rent will be always for the let out portion. Actual rent will always be for the let out portion. You got my point or not? Yes. So what I'm saying, that if any house property is partly let out and partly self occupied, means some area of the house property is let out and some area of house property is self occupied, in that case your let out area will be treated as LOP, self occupied area will be treated as SOP. Means municipal value, fair rent, standard rent, municipal taxes, interest on loan, everything you have to bifurcate between LOP and SOP on the area basis. But always remember, actual rent will never be divided, because actual rent will always be for the let out portion only. You got my point or not? Yes. Now all people just pay attention. Suppose any house property is partly let out house property time wise. Time wise means some like for, I can say that the for some time house property was let out and for remaining time house property was self occupied. I can take one example. I am having one house property in Mumbai. Suppose 7 months that house property was SOP, self occupied, and 5 months that house property was let out. That is called partly let out property time wise. In that case, your house property will be treated as LOP only. In that case, your house property will be treated as LOP only. What I am saying, that even any house property is let out for a single day, then also that will be treated as let out property only. Self occupied property means either house property is self occupied by assessee throughout the year, that will be known as the SOP. Or suppose if you could not occupied any house property due to your business and profession at any other location, and that house property is vacated, that will be treated as self occupied property. But suppose if any house property is sometime, but like in the year, sometime it was self occupied and sometime it was let out, in that case that house property will be treated as let out property only. Means you have to take the municipal value, fair rent, standard rent and all for whole year, but whatever actual rent, that will be only for the let out period only. You got my point or not? Yes. So what I'm saying, that any house property is let out for some period of time and self occupied for some period of time, in that case that house property will be treated as LOP only, that is let out property. Now suppose if any assessee is having more than 2 SOP, then sir, which SOP will be treated as for exempt purpose and which SOP will be treated as DLOP? So I can take one example. Suppose I am having the 3 house property, that is house property A, B and C, and all 3 house property are SOP. So 2 SOP will be exempt, but 1 SOP will be treated as DLOP and it will be taxable. So how we will decide that which house property will be considered as DLOP? So obviously I have to solve the question 3 times. In the first time, what I will do, house property A will be the DLOP and house property B and C will be the SOP. In second time, house property A and C will be the SOP, B will be the DLOP. And in the third time, house property C will be the DLOP and A and B will be the SOP. So I have to solve the question 3 times, and in whichever option, if my income under the head house property will be the lower, that option you have to select. So in any option, in like out of 3 options, wherever your house property income is lower, that option you have to select. You got my point or not? Yes. Now all people just pay attention how you will calculate the income from house property under joint ownership concept. Now, what is the meaning of joint ownership or co-ownership? Any house property is owned by more than one owner is called your co-ownership or joint ownership. So guys, in joint ownership also, always calculate house property income normally, and whatever your house property income, at the end you have to bifurcate that house property income between number of co-owner in their ownership ratio. So suppose I can take one example. One house property is owned by BB sir and one more person, that is suppose AB. So AB and BB both are the co-owner. Now what happened? First I have to calculate the house property income, and whatever house property income, that has to bifurcate between AB and BB in their ownership ratio. But guys, always remember that wherever there is a question of co-ownership, so what will be the interest limit? So interest limit in case of LOP, DLOP, obviously there is no limit. But guys, always remember that in case of the co-ownership question, that interest limit in case of SOP, that 30,000 and 2 lakh, that will be owner wise. It means suppose there are 2 owner, in that case that 30,000 and 2 lakh limit will be the 60,000 and 4 lakh. Suppose there are 3 owner, then that limit will be the 90,000 and 6 lakh. Means that 30,000 and 2 lakh limit for the purpose of SOP in case of joint ownership, that limit of 30,000 and 2 lakh is owner wise limit. Owner wise limit. You got my point or not? Yes. Now next part is related to the composite rent. So composite rent means suppose you let out house property along with some other asset also. Suppose some furniture and all that is also let out along with that house property. So question is that, sir, how like composite rent will be taxable? Means where composite rent will be taxable? So there are two parts. Suppose your agreement is separable, means you bifurcated like your rent in two part. One is the rent of asset and rent of house property. So suppose if your agreement is separable, in that case house property rent will be taxable under that house property only, but other asset rent will be taxable either under income from other sources or PGBP. That depends on the facts. But suppose if agreement is not separable, you let out one house property along with the asset, but agreement is not separable for rent of asset and house property. In that case, your total rent will be taxable under income from other sources or PGBP in hotel and all. You know that. So hotel like let out like a hotel room, and they also let out some asset and all. In that case, that will be taxable either under income from other sources or PGBP. Now, guys, try to understand one more thing. Suppose if any house property is not feasible to let out without other asset, means other asset is mandatory to let out that house property. If any house property is not feasible to let out without any other asset, in that case your total rent will be taxable under the head IFOS or PGBP. Means it is not taxable under the head house property whether agreement is separable or not. All people just pay attention. Again, I am explaining what will be the composite rent treatment. So composite rent, there are two parts. Agreement is separable, agreement is not separable. Suppose agreement is separable, then house property rent will be taxable under that house property, and other asset rent will be taxable under IFOS or PGBP. But suppose agreement is not separable, in that case your total rent will be taxable under IFOS or PGBP. One more point. Suppose what I am saying, that if any house property is not feasible to let out without any other asset, in that case total rent will be taxable under IFOS or PGBP whether agreement is separable or not. Now next part or last part of this particular topic is a deemed ownership. Now deemed ownership means you are not an actual owner, you are not a registered owner, but you will be treated as the owner. So first part, if any house property is transferred to his, or like any house property is transferred to a spouse, any house property is transferred to a spouse for without consideration or inadequate consideration, in that case that transferor will be treated as the deemed owner. Suppose I can take one example. One house property is transferred to my wife, then my wife will be treated as the registered owner and I will be treated as the deemed owner if that house property was transferred for without consideration or inadequate consideration. You got my point or not? Yes. Now guys, but there is one exception. Any house property is transferred under an agreement of leave apart. Agreement of leave apart means there is no divorce, but suppose husband and wife, they decided that we will stay separate, we will live separate. In that case, that is called leave apart. So in connection of leave apart, if anything is transferred, in that case, like transferor will not be treated as deemed owner, transferee will be treated as owner of that particular house property. One more point. Suppose if any house property is transferred to minor child, but other than minor married daughter, what I am saying, that any house property is transferred to the minor child but other than minor married daughter for without consideration or inadequate consideration, in that case transferor will be treated as the deemed owner of that house property. What I am saying, that transferor will be treated as deemed owner of that house property and income will be taxable in hands of transferor only. Now guys, in case of the cooperative society, and all, that property is always registered in the name of the cooperative society, but obviously we are the shareholder of cooperative society, we are holding the share certificate, so we will be treated as the deemed owner of that house property. In case of the impartiable estate, means in case of the impartiable estate means any estate like division of that estate is not possible. In that case, the main holder of that impartiable estate will be treated as deemed owner. Now guys, always try to understand one more thing. In case of the immovable property, if you receive the possession, in case of immovable property, if you receive the possession, even agreement is not made, like even registration not took place, but suppose if you receive the possession, in that case you will be treated as deemed owner. In section 247 also, in transfer definition also, there is one point, okay, if any like immovable property is transferred, then possession is handed over and then it will be treated as transfer. So in simple word, I can say that for the purpose of house property, suppose if you took the possession of any house property, then you will be treated as the deemed owner of that house property. Now one more point, if there is any lease of more than 12 year lease, then you will be treated as deemed owner of that house property. Suppose I receive one house property from the government, state government, then that is the 99-year lease and all. In that case, I will be treated as deemed owner of that house property. You got my point or not? Yes. And after that, one amendment is given. That amendment is the for the SOP purpose. Like 2 SOP is exempt. Now SOP means any property is like occupied by assessee for his own residence purpose, or suppose if any house property is not occupied by the assessee due to the business or profession or employment at any other place, and at any other place you are not owning any house property, in that case that vacant house property will also be treated as your SOP. You got my point or not? Yes. So this is the completion of your topic, income from house property. Just you have to revise 2-3 times, and if you want to check, then you can check some question from ICI module also. So thanks a lot people. That's enough for today from my side.